What is Linux? Linux is a computer operating system that is based on Unix. Linux was invented in 1991 by Linus Torvalds as an operating system to program with. It has since become the most common operating system in the world. Today, you find Linux everywhere. Small, embedded devices, mobile phones, personal computers, and supercomputers. Most spacecraft use Linux. This technology allows you to expand into many different niches. The technology of Linux is interesting, but it's also all the people involved. Working in an open source project where you work with hundreds, potentially 1,000s of people makes the whole technology even more interesting. Hopefully, this turns into an opportunity for you to find something you find really interesting to do. And one of the nice things about Linux and open source in general, is that there's a lot of different things to do. The Linux Foundation is the organization that oversees Linux development and education. How much do Linux administrators earn? The national average entry-level wage for this position is $78,322 a year, according to Glassdoor. In fact, salary estimates show that the salary of a Linux system administrator ranges from about $70,000 per year to $105,000 per year. Annual salaries for experienced workers can be as high as $158,500, but the bulk of salaries range from $81,500 in the 25th percentile to $120,000 in the 75th percentile. Related management positions may pay more, depending on the company. Linux Foundation. The Linux Foundation fills an important role in IT education. Linux runs most computer systems in the world. Linux lacks corporate training. Large IT corporations that have their own technology also provide training to new employees. The Linux Foundation provides training to new Linux IT professionals. The Linux Foundation is a non-profit association dedicated to supporting the growth of Linux. The Linux Foundation was founded in 2007. Among many other things, the Linux Foundation sponsors the work of Linux creator Linus Torvalds. The Linux Foundation is also supported by the leading Linux and open source companies and developers from all over the world. If you look at the history of open source, the first people who developed it were inventive, do-it-yourself types. They would jump in, they would read the documentations, and they would get on internet chat channels. Open source had no institutional benefactors. People got into open source by figuring it out themselves and seeking out other hobbyists. That has never been true for software in general. People always get trained on commercial products. Companies have whole departments to train developers. And learning commercial software has always been supported by colleges and universities. There is a huge gap between high-quality open source products that are changing how we compute, and the training programs for new talent. How can Linux create on-ramps for talent in an age of open source where you don't have the same commercial organizations directly paying for training? How can people get trained and up to speed technically on the software products? This entry-level talent gap is what the Linux Foundation fills.